and see everyone's getting psyched, throwing in Fs. They're throwing the Fs up. They're throwing up the Fs. Thank you, guys. All right, all right. Wow, they're just overloading the place. Cool, cool. Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. Hope you're doing well. And it is time for an interview, a discussion with musician, producer, songwriter, memer extraordinaire, multimedia artist, a man of many talents. We have Mr. Oliver Tree with us, talking with us live over Twitch. How are you doing, man?
Doing great. How you doing? Thanks for having me out here, Fantano.
No problem, no problem. All right, let's get into the new record, which is coming out very soon. Ugly is Beautiful. From what I understand, there have been maybe some label issues with coming out with the record in the way that you wanted to, and having to reschedule the release of the record. Do you want to go into any of that before we talk about maybe some of the music on it?
Let me just start out by saying this album has been done for 3 years. I had this album completely recorded before I had signed to Atlantic in 2017. And ultimately what happens is you try to release music, and when you're working with a label that big, you have to have an audience. So you got to drop some singles to start with. And I wanted to drop the album. I kept trying to drop things that weren't on the album because I didn't want to put out my magnum opus. And the truth is that when you work with when you start bringing in money into music and it becomes a commodity, it starts to play a lot of things into the music that set a lot of things into play that no one else can think about except for the people who are involved. So you guys don't realize what's taking place, but I had all this music made for 3 years, but I didn't have the audience to do it. When I tried to release the music, I asked the label, can we put the album out? When's the date? And they said, well, to tell you the truth, you need to have 1 million followers before you can release a label. Before you can release a label or a song or an album or anything on this project. So let me just rephrase that by saying the label basically would not let me release anything until I had 1 million followers as far as an album goes. And then I put out some stuff here and there, and we start releasing stuff, and I reach a point where, I put out some music videos. I get a budget to do some videos, and the label's like, all right, if you want to get the full budget to do this video right, you need to be able to have a body of work that comes out with it, but you're not ready for the album. You need to have an EP. And literally there's nothing in the contract that says you got to do an EP, but everyone knows this. You have to put out some bodies of work first. They're not just going to let you go right to the album with no audience. So I was forced into dropping EPs. As an artist, would you really want someone to take the end of your movie or your book and say, hey, this is a great way to promote this piece? Fuck no, that's the worst fucking thing you can do. But in order for me to make the videos I have in the big scale budgets that I got, I had to make sacrifices. And so I had to give up the fact that I had to give up chunks of this music. And it was not the way I would ever roll it out again, but to get to the place where I wanted to be, I had to do these things. It's a sacrifice. And so ultimately, the album had to come out in chunks because it was something that was just purely out of the necessity on a marketing standpoint. And so it was nothing that I had anything to do with. I would never do it again. Now that I've reached the point where I can release an album, I would never release another album that had bodies and bits broken up into chunks. But to be frank, after this whole experience and working and being so jaded by the industry, I have no interest doing another album. This is the last album I'm putting out as Oliver Tree. This is the last time I want to have to go through this cycle of doing all this promotional bullshit. The radio vampires come out and leech on you. They want one more thing. The label's never satisfied. They want one more. When you get 1 million fucking followers, it's, oh, you need to have 2 million followers. That's literally what they told me. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? You said 1 million, and it's just never satisfied. It's never enough. It's this constant entanglement of people just making you feel like shit. And the truth is that I have arrived to some place and I need to accept where I am, and a lot of this album is about accepting who I am, how I look, learning to love myself, but also accepting where I've arrived, where I am, because the truth is, you're never going to be where you want. It's always one more thing. It's always you need more. And the way that society is set up is it makes us feel that way. It makes us feel like there's never enough. Someone's doing it better. Someone's having more fun. They look better than you. And so it's this constant feeling of that. And the truth is, the reason why I'm never going to put out another album again is because 90% of what I do now is promoting. And I don't even make art anymore. 10% of the time is making fucking art. I used to only make art exclusively. That's all I did. But the truth is, none of it came out because making art isn't enough. When you make the art, you have to promote it, and this is the part that doesn't work for me. I can't spend 90% of my life dedicated to promoting some fucking shit I made 3 years ago, 5 years ago. Like, this is absurd.
Oh, wow, that's so this is going to be your last release. Do you feel like are you giving up on music entirely? Are you moving on to another musical endeavor? And if you were to do that, do you feel like you'd be giving up something in a way, because you've come this far? I mean, there's maybe certainly an opportunity for you to kind of get off the crazy train, as it were, and then do Oliver Tree, do your own thing independently, maybe? I don't know.
At this point, the label owns Oliver Tree, so it's the kind of thing where I have made thousands of songs. I've made many, many albums that have not come out yet, and so to be my best guess, I would say that they might try to repackage some of those songs, but I'm out. I'm completely done making music for now, at least. I may make music later on in the future, but at this point, I'm switching over to film. I've been focusing on screenplays. I've written 2 over the quarantine period, and I've also been working on building a production company so that I can be producing my own films and have my hand in the ground of being able to work on the ground floor there and do it from scratch and make it right how I want to make it. And the fact is that I'm done being in front of the camera. I'm done playing around, dancing around. I want to be behind the camera. I am a storyteller first and foremost, and ultimately, I want to tell my stories in a longer form content. So I can't really do what I want to do storytelling-wise in a 3-minute song. And so I'm kind of reached this point where it's like, I think it's time for me to focus my energy elsewhere, and then in, who knows, maybe 5-10 years, there's a chance where I could maybe make some music, but at this point, I'm definitely not considering anything.
Okay. I just want to tell the chat and tell everybody who's watching really quickly before I get into the next question that later in the interview, we will be taking fan questions for Oliver. And I believe there's sort of a command in the title of the video on Twitch where you can, sort of submit your question, or you can throw up your question in chat, and Swar will make sure to gather and get it incorporated if it's a good question we want to throw at Oliver. So I guess this talk that you're bringing up about movies makes me want to talk about your art in general, because one thing that makes you stick out to me as not just a musician but an artist as well is that you are just like on another level in terms of like the multimedia game, because you're not only doing music stuff, you have sort of this somewhat outlandish fashion sense too, and the music video thing, and the way that you sort of define yourself and separate yourself from the pack through your promotion in the meme verse and sort of like the viral humor bits that you come up with. Like, what exactly has sort of driven you to this place where it's not just music, it's a little bit of everything sort of culminating into one giant concept piece in a way? Because I feel like with Oliver Tree, if you're just listening to music, if you're just listening to the music, you're not really getting the full story. You're not getting the full anything, honestly.
Right. Yeah, I'd start out by saying I've been making music and releasing music professionally for 9 years. I've had record deals that didn't work out. I've had a tremendous amount of failure where I've been working on this life's work and nobody listened, nobody cared. And so ultimately, this is out of nothing more than necessity for people to be able to find the art. So the truth is, I've been working on a bit of a template which allows someone to be able to wear one outfit and be able to do every type of media together, which this isn't necessarily the newest concept, but the way we're pushing it and applying it is unique in the sense that I am basically, everything I ever do has been in this outfit. So I've been spreading these breadcrumbs throughout the internet. And the interesting idea behind this is I'm putting out all these things out there. If it's a comedy video, if it's a meme, if it's music, if it's a documentary, a music video, all these different types of art that exist, I have a consistent look through it all. And the truth is that gives me tremendous freedom to be able to do whatever I want and have it all trail back to one place. And using the same name as well. So this is something that I've been working on, trying to push the template and make a blueprint that can make it so that people can do everything and have it all trail back to the art. And the truth is, it's a very unique way to find art because you're setting up these breadcrumbs, and when you see it at first glance, you just see it and you're like, oh, this is just some stupid little video, some dumb meme or something. Maybe it made a cheap chuckle, keep scrolling. But the truth is, it's about creating this as an entrance point to a world and using the meme or this image as a a thumbnail to pull people into this world. And in a lot of ways, it's very exciting because you can be able to do all things included. And the turning point in this was when obviously I had worked and made all this music and nobody cared. And I realized at a certain point that it was about entertainment. And the truth is that art is entertainment. Art is entertainment with substance. So the truth is that they're not so far apart. But if you really want to get into being an artist, you are ultimately entering into the place of being an entertainer. And that was kind of a point that snapped it for me. And I was like, all right, well, it's much bigger than just the music. That's an amazing thing that should be at the core and the number one thing, undoubtedly. But that's not enough to get people to find this stuff. That's not enough to get your message heard through it. So the truth is, I had to go through all these backwards doors trying to figure out ways to get people to come back to the music. But the overall experience is incredibly unique in the sense that if you found it through these stupid memes and videos, and then you end up finding out that there is genuinely good music there and something that resonates with you, through that experience, it's a very personal journey for the fan. And so when they find out that, they feel like they have personally found this themselves. It's a very special thing to go seek that out and find it, and then find out something that's special to you and most people might not know about. And so in that process, the way I can explain it is that someone's guard's down that way, and they're watching this and they're like, okay, and then maybe they get to a point where they're like, is this going to be music that's going to be the worst thing I ever heard? Or they don't even know it's music. It's just a picture on a video, and they click on it, and then they find out, whoa, this is something that's actually serious here. And it's a turning point because the way I can explain it is that it's someone's guard is down. And it's like taking an uppercut, a swing to their head while their guard's down. So sometimes it can hit even harder. But in the same breath, all my antics, all my things, there's a lot of things you could say that maybe these things have held me back. I'm still in the process of seeing what's happening. We haven't rolled this thing out. I can't say too much here because I'm in the process of rolling out. But, at this point, I may have already shot myself in the foot. I may have just been on to finding a gold mine. We don't know yet. Time will tell. It's not going to happen as soon as the second the album comes out. It's going to take years, ultimately. But the way I'm doing it and tying together and making documentaries and documenting, creating art, I am creating new blueprints and designing new ways for people to do it. And I can't say anything else than that. But I am writing and going to be sharing more on the scholastic side about this in years to come.
Well, quickly, I want to give a shout out to T-Pain of all people, who just gifted a ton of subs to everybody. So shout out to him. Thank you very much, dude. And I like a lot of what you're saying in terms of like how it makes sense within almost the non-framework of modern music existing on the internet, because on social media, on all these platforms we all know so well, I mean, outside of the algorithms, which a lot of the time are not good, they're trash, they often don't bring you the things that you're actually interested in or bubble things up to the top that are genuinely interesting and engaging. It's like you found this really neat way of navigating this chaos of the internet that a lot of artists don't really know how to wrestle with, because you're just throwing this album out there that you really care about and you think is great, and you're just like praying to fucking God that like it picks up in some way. But you're making all of these different sort of like traps, that people can get caught in, that sort of draws you back to, whatever it is at the time is the key thing that you're working on, you want to push people to. Could be your new record, could be a music video that you just dropped, could be an EP, could be a single, could be anything.
Exactly.
So let me ask you more about the conceptual and performance art aspect of what you do, because there's certainly like kind of a character element to it as well. You're not just coming out here and being yourself, and it's not simply, you just putting on a costume either. It's like you're kind of embodying something that has certain personality traits and interests. It's the scooter stuff, it's the humor that you engage in, but simultaneously it goes beyond just doing a funny video. It's like you're embodying, something that's sort of outside of yourself when you sort of, do right. Oliver Tree in terms of like, an entertainment thing.
Well, as I said, 90% of what I do is promotional things. Mm-hmm. So the only way a person can justify doing that is if you're actually considering it an art piece. And sure. Everything I do, I consider to be art. And the truth is, that's the only way I can justify spending 90% of my time doing all this other shit that isn't even creating art technically, but in my personal experience and opinion, I do consider it art, and I consider whatever I do in life to be a stage, and I can perform on whatever that stage may be. And I've spent a lot of time studying performance artists. I've studied people like Andy Kaufman, who are the OGs, and I've studied Nathan Fielder and Sacha Baron Cohen and all these people who have found ways to be provocateurs and found ways to be able to set up a mirror in front of society to show just how ridiculous we've become. And that's a big part of what I do. It's like, I'm just a reflection of the times. This is just a reflection of where we are right now. And that may seem annoying and obnoxious on a face value, but when you dig a little deeper and understand the idea of this, it actually can be something that you can maybe look at in a different lens.
Well, when you do what you do, what is it that you personally feel like? Because, you know, I agree with what you're saying. You know, performance art can certainly be that mirror, but, you know, Sacha Baron Cohen reflects much different things than a Nathan Fielder does than a you do. When you're reflecting things, what do you feel like specifically it is that you're trying to push back into the face of the audience to be like, this is you, or this is the time that you exist in?
Yeah, ultimately, the way I see it is I do set the mirror up for whatever I'm doing. And it's case-by-case study. If I'm making a meme, that's one thing. If it's something like a song or something else, it's case by case. I can't just say one thing over everything, but... Mm-hmm.
I guess, are there certain themes that you feel like you come back to whenever you're making a meme, making a song, making a visual, making an anything that you feel like sort of exists within the Oliver Tree universe that you feel like you consistently come back to?
Yeah, for me personally, it's about exaggerating things. It's about taking something and really taking it to the final form, pushing it. You see something that you normally see every day and you take that and put it in a new context and blow that thing up, and all of a sudden you're looking at it from a new perspective. So a lot of what I do is, you know, perspective based, and I am ultimately a surrealist artist. So I'm just creating up these funhouse mirrors that are ultimately exaggerating things, but ultimately not that far off from where the fuck we are right now, you know? We are in a very, very wild time and a really dark time, and ultimately it's been something where we really, you know, to set that mirror in front of ourselves, it becomes quite apparent how ridiculous things have gotten, and it's maybe needed more now than ever.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly something surreal to when you're sort of, you know, in your getup and then getting on the front of that giant scooter and then getting on the front of it like you're crucified in the front of it. You know, let me quickly ask you about the mimetic aspect of everything that you do, because I feel like you approach that in a way that is totally different than any other artist that, you know, is your contemporary right now. You know, just a general ask to kind of dip into this. Do you feel like memes are art as well? Are memes just as much an art form as anything else? Should they be taken seriously? Should they not be taken seriously? Like, where and how do you feel memes and art intersect?
Right, so I think memes can be art. I wouldn't inherently say every single thing that's made as a meme is a piece of art. But you know, there's some people I know that say the way they eat a banana is art. So I mean, that's a different conversation. But ultimately, I see the potential of memes being completely pop surreal art. I see what someone like Andy Warhol was doing. I consider what he was making were memes. Those were just, they're memes, they're recreations of things, and he puts them in, recontextualized them in a different way than we've ever looked at a soup can, and they were essentially laying the brickwork for what memes would become in the pop art sense. And I think there's a lot of people that are exploring and doing surrealist memes that are things that are hyper surrealism realities, and you know, working with Photoshop and creating worlds like that. There's people like Tommy Cash who is making art out of memes. And I would say there is not a ton of people who are taking it super serious, but the movement is growing. And one of the turning points for me recognizing that was when I talked to these painters I knew in Santa Cruz, and they told me, I'm talking to them and asking, what are you guys painting? And they're like, dude, we're painting vaporwave. And I was like, what does that mean? He's like, we're painting desktops. We're painting like apps and all these different things, like with oil painting. And they were really explaining to me and showing me that anything could be art, and the way you position it, you know, and the way that they saw it was, oh man, this is crazy, could be crazy high art. What the way that we normally look at it is not that, but there is an angle there that does show that. And so it kind of opened up my mind to being like, holy shit, this isn't so far off. But you know, it's kind of interesting because you think about art and there's a lot of different types. There's highbrow and there's lowbrow. And so where do memes sit on that? Is memes more on the lowbrow spectrum? Potentially, yes, but like, I think it's all about, the context. And meme is like, it's kind of a slang word thrown around. It could mean a lot of things too. So, might even want to start by just prefixing what that is to you in the conversation, you know what I mean? Because it could mean a lot of things. It's kind of a loose term in a lot of ways.
Well, from what I understand, in your own educational pursuits, I mean, you've drawn up or drawn together some kind of thesis in regards to memes and meme culture?
Yeah, so I went to Cal Arts for my last 2 years of school, and I was studying music technology, but for my senior thesis, I actually wrote my entire paper and piece on how to turn yourself into a meme. And this was the actual one that I submitted into school. And it basically...
Pull that more toward the center. There you go. Thank you. There you go.
So this was my original one, and I don't want to say too much, but basically talking about designing the human meme and persona. I'm not going to say all the chapters, of course, because someone could steal this shit easily, but talking about, costumery and designs, talking about crowdsourced entertainment, memes and music, talking about the dark side of the meme, talking about meme etiquette, the money industry. I wrote this whole entire paper on all this stuff, and it's a very in-depth piece, but I ended up taking it one step further, and over the last few years, since I graduated 3 years ago, I've been developing it into a memoir, and this is How to Turn Yourself into a Meme, The Road to Using Your Image as a Vehicle. And this is something that will be out in the next potentially 2 years, I would say. I have to finish rolling out my whole strategy. But I've been writing this memoir, and this is something that I am so fucking proud of, and I don't want anybody to steal this idea, so I can't say too much beyond it. But, I mean, it lays the blueprint for what I've been doing, and it also talks about how these things should be used for only the greater good, because this is extensive knowledge and I don't want people using it to market some bullshit products. I've set it up in the context where it would be only usable to artists, and the idea is that it would be used for artists to be able to get their music heard, because I also struggled my whole life getting anyone to hear my music. So I'm kind of setting up a blueprint that allows people to promote their art on their own without the need of so many things. And truth be told, anyone has a cell phone, so anyone with a cell phone could be making things with this ideas, You just need a camera or a video camera, so. But yeah, it's something that I take very serious. I studied memes thoroughly. I studied the origins of it on the internet and talking about things like Soulja Boy, and the Crank That craze that existed. That was kind of one of the first dance crazes that took place in that way in this modern internet era. And then, it evolved, and we saw things in the underground like Little B and people who were doing their own take on it without the dance crazes necessarily, but doing, a whole different attempt at, trolling and bringing this aspect into an artist project. And then, we saw like a more modern breed where we saw the Harlem Shake, and we saw that, Pink Guy made that video that ended up setting the dance craze. And then it just kind of kept going, and then that was kind of really a start of like people making dance crazes and labels attempting to pay people to make dance crazes, and like the whole idea of like making and financially investing into memes, and going into that side of where it became commercialized, And I spent exclusive time studying this, and I don't think there's many people who have actually done the research into memes. There's not much written. I had a lot of trouble being able to search this up. This was in 2016 when I started writing it. So this is a long time coming, but memes get a bad rap. People think, oh, I don't want to be a meme, blah, blah, blah. But the truth is, anything that's iconic is memeable. It's just, people just need to understand that meme doesn't have to be a bad term. I think there's a lot of negative connotation about what it is, and people consider it just something that, is a cheap chuckle, keep scrolling, but the power of the meme is so vast and the potential is so insane. And what we've seen with the way people like Lil Nas X have promoted his music using memes obviously shows a different type of era we're living in, where it's less about the label and less about anyone gatekeeping and more about coming up with things that really connect with the generation that's consuming.
Yeah, and I think there are a lot of people that don't necessarily understand the difference between being a meme or being something that people turn or make memes about or make memes in reflection of. And I think people sort of misunderstand one for the other. Like the moment people are making memes about you and about something that you do, oh, I've become a meme. And it's not necessarily the case.
Right. That's a fact.
You know,
and the thing is that the truth is, I don't even consider myself a meme. I have made memes and people have made memes of me, but when I think of a meme, I think of like a truly viral moment. And ultimately, I don't think in my world there's ever been something like that. And that's actually to my advantage, because when you actually get to be that meme level, you kind of pigeonhole yourself into it. And the truth is, it's better to have an understanding of virality and understanding what is meme culture, but not necessarily being only obsessively known for that one thing, because that could be detrimental to you as well. And I've been fortunate in the aspect that none of my memes became a significant one, that all just kind of had their own lifespans and have done their own things, and some are more significant than others, but there hasn't been one that's been the king of the memes that's been like, you're the guy from that meme, and then you're stuck like that. And I've seen my friends get stuck like that, and I've seen what it does, and it pigeonholes people, and it's actually detrimental in some ways. So understanding meme culture is different than necessarily becoming a meme or being a meme. And it's not like, you know, anyone who calls themselves a meme is definitely not a meme.
Referring to what you were talking about earlier in terms of like you being almost disillusioned with the music industry, the negative experiences that you've had and all of that. And, you know, just how that's kind of painted your views on, again, music and commercial music in general. You know, do you feel like the future is as dismal for memes right now, or does the future of memes and meme culture excite you at the moment with, I don't know, the current landscape, which deals in TikTok and, you know, deep fried memes and the astronaut with the other fucking gun holding the gun at the back of the other astronaut? You know, it's like,
right.
You know, does the current meme landscape actually incite you or excite you and enthuse you, unlike music may?
The way I'll put it is, I only can say ignorance is bliss. And I do not follow any accounts. I'm not on the internet looking at memes. I have no time for that. I have no interest. So my thing is, it's not about trying to necessarily ride off the movement that's happening. You kind of got to try to carve your own lane out of it and do your own thing. And if you are too caught up in it, you're just going to be caught up doing what everyone's doing, and you're not going to really do your own thing. And so it's the same way with me for memes as it is for music. I don't listen to music. I personally don't enjoy listening to music. It's not what I would do in my spare time for fun. I am a visual person. In my spare time, I watch movies. That's what I do for inspiration. I don't look up to any musicians, not necessarily any artists at all, but there's a part of me that puts directors on a plateau, and I look up to them in a different way, but ultimately, everyone's just human, so I have kind of eliminated that idea of putting people up on this plateau. But if you were to ask me the heroes to me, it's film directors. It's not musicians. I don't give a fuck about any of the musicians that are happening right now except for one person. And there's this new artist I've been listening to, and a guy who, quite frankly, is the only feature on my album and probably, in my opinion, going to be one of the biggest artists on the planet in the next couple of years. Little Ricky ZR3. He's someone that I've been working with for a while through this album experience. I had him as the only feature on the album, except he did also do some scratching on Bury Me Alive at the end of the song, and in my song Waste My Time, he played the strings, violin, viola, and cello. But besides that, literally, I have no features on my album. It's literally just Little Ricky, and that's the only person I fuck with right now. It's a major statement to say I find something new that actually speaks to me. So when I heard this guy's shit, I just fucking lost my mind, and I've just been going crazy over it. Okay.
I mean, I guess now that we're kind of talking about some of the instrumentation and the feature on the new record, do you want to talk about the writing process behind the new LP? I know, again, with the way it's been released and the EPs and being broken up and everything, I mean, you know, that's all a shame, and, you know, we can sort of leave that conversation where we left it. But, you know, what is the creative process for this record like? You know, where's your mind at when you're limiting yourself to just a visual, not a visual, but an auditory medium, since you are a visual guy?
Right. So I'm a storyteller first and foremost, as I said. So it's about storytelling. And I do think visual stuff is a very nice influence for storytelling, especially lyrically. To see it as an image is a powerful thing. So a lot of what I do, I would say 80% of what I do in the studio is improvising, when I'm recording vocals, I'm just going in there and I go into the booth and I just let it completely unravel. And I record for about 30 minutes or so, maybe 45, sometimes 15. And then I go back and I roll some joints up and I listen to it and I see little bits of gold. You know, I just mine for the gold and I find these little things and I cut them together. And often the lyrics are, you know, need to be reworked and revised, and I go in and write them and recut them. And there's other times where they're literally 100% perfect, and there's even times where I'm unable to get that exact vocal take ever again. It's so unique to what it is that I wouldn't be able to change it, and if I did, I would be losing that magic. So that's a big part of the style, is improvising and taking that jazz influence of being able to just go free form with it. And ultimately, the creation process, though, is, you know, a long period. We spend years working on these songs. I try to record the bulk of it in the first day or so, and I produce everything, although I do work with other producers. I have people who come on and help me with things, but I'll play guitar on some of the songs. I'll play piano, but if there's a better guitar player, if there's a better pianist, they're going to jump in and carry that. If there's a better drummer, they're going to jump in and do that. But the one thing I make sure I maintain to stay true and authentic to myself is that I write every lyric, I write every melody. I don't let people contribute to that, because I am a storyteller, for Christ's sakes. I'm not about to go out there and start singing stories about other people's lives, you know? I'm not going to go on a stage and be going up there singing a story that I don't know about, you know what I mean? So that's been paramount to me, and having some consistency throughout all the styles I explore is that I do produce these songs myself. I do produce them all the way through, and I'm the last guy working on trying to bridge the gap and finish the song. And the truth is, it allows me to have a certain consistency throughout all these different genres, because there is one unique vocalist, even though it is of various styles, and then you have the same person who's producing all these things as well. So it gives it a certain cohesiveness no matter where I explore or where I go.
You know, when you are throwing down vocals in the studio, is this a point where you've already like produced a beat, you have a hook, do you have sort of a rough song structure in mind or whatever, and then you're improvising over that?
Start from scratch every single time. Go in there, I'll play some guitar, I'll play some synths, whatever. If there's a great guitar player, I just say, hey, this is a song I'm super inspired by. Is there any way you can kind of put a little spin on this so we can make it our own? And be able to kind of take from something, and then when I do my vocal styles, it sounds nothing like it because I don't take any influence. But I'll take some things and say, hey, I really love this Smash Mouth riff right here. Can you guys help me get this sound a little bit? And we work on it just for a little bit, and ultimately it's sometimes just me playing guitar, and I'll work with a drummer or whatever it is, but we start from scratch every time. I do not want a beat made by someone. I do not want something that came from 6 months ago. I want to make something right now and pure, and then I just let it naturally come out. And as far as the improvising goes, it's about creating a moment instead of capturing. I got it wrong. As far as the improvising goes, it's about capturing a moment instead of trying to create a moment. Because it's one thing to go out there and be like, we got to make this crazy song and we got to make the best song ever. In a lot of ways, when you make music, you're like a gambler. You're in the casino and there's no windows and you can't see the sunlight. You don't know how long you're in there, and you're gambling to see if you can get some special art piece that's going to be able to inspire you and make you see a whole new world before your eyes. And you're gambling out there. And sorry.
Well, I was going to say, I'm kind of surprised at the statement that you made earlier about, I mean, you know, I'm not here to say who you do and don't look up to and who you don't do and don't respect, but I mean, I'm surprised to hear that you don't necessarily, you know, look up to musicians per se, because at least when I listen to your music, and I've seen you live, I caught you, you know, live, and that's I think we could say here in this interview, that's where I first was introduced to your music, in the live setting. That's where you and I first met. Because, you know, up until that point, I had no clue who the fuck you were. And, you know, at the venue that we were at, you know, I was allowed backstage, and I came backstage and I said hi. And, you know, there's like pictures of us up on Instagram, and, you know, people can reference back to that if they want to. But it was a while ago. But the first time I saw you, the first thing that struck me about your music is just how it seems like there's so much reverence in it for classic 90s pop rock, for Beck, for Beastie Boys. I mean, are you telling me that the music of those artists like means nothing to you?
No, I don't think you understood what I was saying. So where I'm at right now, I don't look up to any musicians. That's not to say I haven't been obsessed with musicians and looked up to musicians my entire life.
Sure.
Those are two separate things.
Sure.
So what I want to clarify is, I have been obsessed with so many different people. I have been the ultimate fanboy. I have been obsessed with people, and I've seen Flying Lotus play 9 different times.
Okay. Yeah.
I was obsessed. But you reach a certain point and you don't make people into being some kind of god. You just recognize everybody's just a person, and yeah, they made great art. So I stopped putting people up on the plateau in that way, you know? And I think the only reason I even said anything about film is not that I put them on that plateau, but in a lot of ways, the way that someone makes a world with the film, it's very much creating your own world in such a visual way that I can see that a little bit more in that direction. But it's all the same, music, film, you know? I've been so influenced by people. I've been obsessed going to concert after concert, buying every record, buying vinyls, buying every kind of merch item. You know what I mean? Like I didn't buy every merch item. I couldn't afford that. But I'm just saying, like, I literally would get what I could of my favorite artists and I would support them. So I know what it's like to be a fan. I know what these kids are like feeling, you know? And I understand what it is when someone meets me and they trip out. Because I had actually had that experience when I was young. And the truth is that everybody is literally just a normal ass fucking dude. It doesn't matter how they present themselves. Everybody is literally just a normal person. And some people learn how to really be able to open and expand their mind and explore and take things and push it to another level. And other people are, you know, just confined to the world that as they see it. And they're not here to make some kind of greater contribution. And they are here to just live and exist. And that's totally perfectly fine as well.
You know, now that you've kind of opened that floodgate a little bit and talked about that trajectory and being a fan and buying records and some of the stuff you were alluding to earlier, what exactly, you know, are sort of your musical origins, I guess, you know, is a question that I wanted to throw at you, you know, not just your influences, but like, how exactly did you get started recording stuff? You know, like what was your first big break in the industry? How have you progressed artistically up until this point?
I'm still waiting for the break, Fantano.
Okay.
I'm still waiting. But let me say this.
Hey, wait, time out. You got to stop smoking that. It's against TOS. Quit it.
You serious?
Yeah, I'm serious.
You're joking.
I'm not joking. Be a good boy for me. Be a good boy.
What was the question?
The question was sort of what is your own musical trajectory in terms of the music that you used to make, that you're making now, getting into the music industry, recording professionally, commercially?
So I grew up in an extremely musical household. Both my parents were musicians. And the fact is that I grew up in a house that was just covered in instruments. There was instruments around always. My dad is the kind of guy who can play every instrument, but he can only play one song on them. So he literally just plays the same song over and over again. It's incredible. But, you know what I mean? It's like, basically that's the extent of it. And so that is incredible to have that around you. And I grew up in a musical household. My parents were super, you know, a big part of their parenting was, you know, creating a lot of opportunities around to let the kid try different things out. And so they would kind of say, Oliver, if you do something and try it out, you got to follow through with it. And they would kind of push me in the direction of doing certain things. So they made me take piano lessons at the age of 3. And I hated it. They had me playing Mary Had a Little Lamb, all these fucking horrible songs that no one would want to play, not even a 3-year-old. And I literally spent 3 years learning how to play piano. And I hated it. It was miserable. Had to practice every single day. And it was something that I loathed. It was literally a horrible experience. But it was a great experience looking back. But at the time, I was like, fuck this, I'm out. And then literally, I went to a guitar shop one day, and I was in Santa Cruz at this place called The Starving Musician, and I find this one guitar that is a pig nose guitar with a built-in amplifier in it. And as soon as you pull it out, it starts playing distortion. And like you could play rock music out of it. And I didn't even hardly know how to play a guitar, but I could already start sounding like rock. And that was kind of my, I think, introduction to really distortion and falling in love with distortion was kind of at that moment, which ultimately has led to the album that I have created with Ugly is Beautiful. That's another conversation. But anyways, ultimately, that was a turning point because it was the first time that I actually chose music. And I got every penny in my piggy bank and I saved up and I went back and I bought that guitar. And that was my turning point that I chose music. That was something I wanted to do. And so I ended up taking lessons in middle school, started recording. I did a recording when I was like 11 or something like that with my dad in the studio. I didn't produce or anything, but my voice was so shitty. It was so bad. It's like nails on the chalkboard. And it's a fucking testament to show that anybody can be a singer. Literally, if I could do it, anybody could do it. It's taken me almost, what, like 19 years to refine my voice to sound not completely obnoxious. Like, the thing is that anybody can be a singer, and I don't even use auto-tune. I use effects and things because, like, of course, anyone can use auto-tune and be a great singer as well. You don't even have to go through those 19 years. You can just literally put some auto-tune on it and find how your voice sits. Everyone has the potential to be a vocalist, and I firmly believe that after hearing those records. But, moving forward, played, baritone in the middle school band, went through various phases. I ended up getting into a rap group in high school called Mindfuck, and we would record raps every single day after school. And then I went on to DJing in high school. In my sophomore year, I got really into DJing, right around when I was getting into professional scootering, and I was doing both of them at the same period. And ended up, playing some shows that got me an agency, and I signed, and I was able to get some big shows opening up for big artists. In high school, I got to open up for Skrillex. And after the DJ point, I kind of went to a psychedelic jam band where we would take a bunch of LSD and play the same song for 8 hours straight. And then after that, I ended up getting, in my last year of high school, I started getting really into production. I did producing through high school in the first couple years, starting on GarageBand, probably my freshman year or whatever. And then gradually, I had mentors that showed me Ableton, helped me download the loops. Shout out to Sir Paul. He was one of my main mentors. But I'll say this. In my senior year, I really got deep into production and defining my own sound, and I would use sounds of things around in the kitchen, like the toaster, and using eggs cracking and whatever I could use to do found sound stuff and make indie pop music. And that came out as my Tree project, which ended up having one release called Splitting Branches, which was essentially a selected works. It wasn't even really an album. It was something I released myself, I paid to get it mastered myself, and just gave it away for free on Mediafire, something like that. And it was the kind of thing where I had actually defined my own sound at that point and was doing something unique, and I ended up getting, going into more of an ambient ground and doing more experimental stuff, and ended up signing with the label and went through this whole process of starting to make pop music where you have to sell it and you have to package it. And I tried out some takes at it, and it ended up not necessarily working out, but ultimately all those things lined up for me having to set things up in a completely new way and go back to the drawing board and come up with ways for people to actually find this music, because no one ever really was finding it. And so it was interesting on the journey through all those things, because I was like, what the fuck am I doing here? Why am I making a rock song one day? Why am I making a rap song one day? Why am I making a random electronic beat or a J Dilla beat the next day? What is going on? Is this 8 projects? What the fuck is going on here? And I figured out, and by studying the Gorillaz, I was able to learn a lot of ways I could genre fusion these things together. And I think that's really exciting about that was it showed me that I was able to be one project with all these things under one roof and one umbrella. And that was a turning point for me, because I started really merging these things together in unique ways that would ultimately be taken from the blueprint that the Gorillaz made. But the difference was the Gorillaz had all these vocalists and all these people coming on. And that music, let's keep in mind, it came out in 2001 in March, that first album. That literally is about to hit 20 years now, and that's been made over 20 years ago at this point. So what I'm getting at is, with cycles and the way things repeat, it's like, this is the first generation of kids growing up listening to the Gorillaz who actually grew up on it, who actually was, 7 years old and listened to it till 27. And literally, at this point, I feel like I'm kind of almost taking the torch and trying to take it to the next level, where it's one guy doing all these different voices. And the truth is that everyone has to be versatile to be a singer now, and you have to do all these different things. But I'm talking about a lot of different styles and trying to make it be all these different characters I pull without of myself. And I have been able to find that there's 16 characters within myself. And I initially found this through putting on different outfits while singing and recording, and they would bring out these different personalities and selves within me. And that was the way I was able to channel these different personalities and these different vocal styles. And then later on, I was able to refine them to the point where I didn't need to put on outfits to be able to channel them. I just would be able to naturally pull them out. And that's where I am now.
Okay. A lot of interesting information there. I want to go into some fan questions, because we've had quite a few thrown at us that are pretty good and thoughtful. Mr. Mike Zucchini asks, where does the meme end and the real Oliver begin? Also, I guess you could ask that about the character too. The real Oliver, the character Oliver, the meme, the real Oliver, the real Oliver.
Right. So the truth is imagine yourself filming a video where you're doing some kind of stunt, and you know, your adrenaline is pumping. It's basically turning yourself up to 11. You know, it's like the fullest, craziest version because the adrenaline is going and I'm literally putting my life on the line in some of these scenarios. I do all my own stunts. When I do music videos, I always have stunts. I love the idea of performing while being put into a dangerous situation to get a unique performance out of the artist. And so for me, that's the thing, is about how do I do something unique while performing? And so I put myself into a lot of stunts and I do a lot of different various things to be able to, you know, get the adrenaline pumping. I'm an adrenaline junkie. I grew up in an adrenaline junkie family. And so ultimately, the character is just me turned up to 11. That's just me with my ass on the line, literally just full adrenaline out. And the truth is, there is no separation between me and the character. However, the truth is the character is an extension of myself and literally the most ridiculous versions of myself pulled out, the gooniest versions of myself. When you look at the outfit, when you look at the design of it, it is truly authentic origins. Let me explain this to you. Okay. I have a bowl cut. That is the haircut I've had my whole life. I was too scared to get any other haircut till I was like 13 or something. And then that point for the next 5 or 10 years was just different shapes of ball heads. You know what I mean? And so after a certain point, you know, when I reached a point where I had a chance to be able to have my first music video that would be seen by millions of people. My first major level music video shoot. So I'm like, I have my first chance to show myself on MTV to millions of people. How am I going to present myself? Am I going to try to use sex to sell myself and try to compete with other people? Or am I going to try to separate myself out and stick out like a sore thumb and try to do something to make myself look unique so you'd remember me? And so ultimately what I did that night was I pulled all these things from my life. So everything you see with this is authentic to who I am. This jacket, this is my mom's ski jacket. She had it from my aunt gave it to her in the 80s. I stole it from her. This is something I wore when I was skiing as a child. This is actually something from my family. These glasses are the glasses as a kid I would put on that made me feel cool. I would wear them as a kid and I would felt like a tough guy. The socks and sandals, those are the most ridiculous forms of shoes that I wear, but that's just comfortable and I like to wear them. And the pants are the pants that I always wanted. And so what you have here is something that is designed around my authentic life and self. And so it's not some character that's been designed. It's just me pulling together the most ridiculous parts of myself and packaging them with a bow on it. And basically, you know, that is the beginning of it. But then it goes to my greater life and you look at things like, why the fuck would I have scootering in my music project? Because I was a professional scooter rider. I'm putting everything I've done in my life into one thing and I'm packaging it together to share my life story. That's what makes me unique. That's what makes me one of a kind, Fantano. And so the thing is, and the thing is what you could take from this as a listener is, it's not about what you do as a musician or what you can do as an artist. It's about everything in your life that you have to offer. And I'm just pulling everything together and I'm just sharing it as one package. That's the essential idea, is putting it in that package and putting a nice little bow and saying, hey, here's something you can digest and not need to scratch your head or not be able to connect with. It's something that can instantly be able to get you to understand.
Next question comes from Fillmore's Gas. This person would like to know if there are going to be more music videos and visual pieces coming post the new album release.
At this point, it depends if the label gives me more money. At this point, I've tapped out my video budgets. I've spent way too much money. I have to say this, though. I don't look at it as a failure, even though my videos have bombed pretty bad. The truth is I signed a major label deal so I could make short form, major label, big scale music videos that were essentially scenes from movies. So as a nobody director and as someone who had no name, I was able to find a way to get a key from one castle of the music industry to open up the doors in the film world so that I could, as a nobody, make $1 million music video that I directed, that I don't have to necessarily do a commercial for anything other than my art. Who the fuck is going to give me that kind of money to have full creative control? You know what I mean? So I basically, that was the only reason I signed with the major label, is because I'm a visual artist, and in the past I made albums that were children's books that were wanting to be made into animated films. But if you don't have $10 million, you're a delusional person. And I spent so many years talking about all these things I wanted to do, but could never do, Fantano. I could never afford to do it, and I would just be talking about these things. And I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna travel the world with this stage I built that's a tree trunk and these trees in a forest, and I'm gonna take this around the world. And my friends are like, dude, You're crazy. But good luck. And, it took me 10 years to do that. I couldn't tour until I actually was able to get, 10 years later in my career. And I was telling my friends that since I was 16 years old. Oh yeah, I built this thing and I'm going to do it. But the funds were not there. And I was telling people I'm making, and I legitimately made a children's book with my brother. We spent 1.5 years illustrating it. It was an album that was tied to this that had a chapter for each song. There was an illustration. And so it's a book. And I made this shit, and I didn't have the funding to make it into a film. I didn't even have the funding to properly get the publishers and get people's attention. I didn't have the right resources to do that, and I didn't have the funding to get it made. And so I was just making all this shit that would never see the light of day. I must have made at least 15 albums that I can guarantee you none of them will come out. Maybe on a record store day, one day in 20 years I'll drop one of them, or you know what I mean? But at this point, they're not going to see the daylight. And there's been so much progression since then that it would almost be a disservice to go backwards. You know what I mean? And so as an artist, you show approximately, and this is different for everyone, but for an artist like me who's really prolific and makes a lot of stuff, it's more of a numbers game. And it's like you release 1% of your music. 99% of my music will never see the daylight. 99% of the art that I make will never see the daylight. So that's just something that has to go, in the knowledge, and the artist has to be 5 years, 10 years ahead of their audience if you're really taking it serious, which I do. And I'm putting together research and really trying to reverse engineer this thing inside out. The truth is you got to put in serious legwork to try to build this world and build your own exit off the highway that's basically your own highway. Because the thing is, the sooner you come in, the sooner you go out. And you want it to be a smoother thing where you're building your own thing instead of riding the wave that's happening right now. I'm just taking my slow burn, doing my thing. I'll catch up with you guys when I do. I'm not too worried about if I never do. Who cares? I'm trying to make the greatest art I can, and I'm not trying to ride the trends. And I think that's a lot of things artists get caught up in is, oh man, this is what they're making and this is what's selling. And ultimately, that's the opposite of what I'm doing here. I'm making the most random music that isn't relevant at all. But the thing is, there are people that it connects with, and it is very nostalgic, and it's touching on things that I grew up listening to, and I missed out on it. And I never even liked pop punk. I never even was into it, but it was seeping through the mainstream my entire life growing up, and I actually, maybe turns out I did enjoy it. I didn't even know though, because I wasn't even aware, but when I tried to go up and make a pop album, all these things that seep through the mainstream, through MTV and the radio growing up, had all basically taken on. And this is just a reflection of what it was to grow up in the 90s and what it was to grow up in the 2000s. And, in an ignorant way, being kind of completely ignorant to what's happening sonically right now and just going my own way. And the truth is, it is dated inspiration, but if you listen to the production, there is modern production elements that they didn't have in the 90s, that they did not have in the 2000s. So I'm trying to push it forwards and take it one step further. But the thing is that, you're not going to reinvent the wheel. You can maybe make a new word. You're maybe not going to make a whole language. You can make some words and maybe some sentences that you're contributing to the brickwork of it. You know what I mean? But I'm aware that it's like you're not going to reinvent the wheel. But what I can do is contribute new ideas or build off of the ideas that have pre-existed and trying to bring them to the modern scape, and spin them in new ways. And taking things from one genre and mixing it to another. Like I shoot music videos in the way that someone maybe would shoot a hip-hop music video, except I'm shooting a rock video. You know what I mean? And promoting a rock album in a very backwards way, and finding these different approaches that are maybe not the first thing you might think to go about it, but trying to find a way to kind of respin it, give it a little bit of a new, fresh spin on something that's already been played out.
I do agree with what you're saying. There's certainly sort of like a modern veneer to a lot of the nostalgic ideas that you're playing with. You present them in a new way. This next question comes from something I'm getting a lot of questions about, because when you mentioned it earlier, the chat was like really popping off about little Ricky. People don't know who the hell this guy is. Do you want to divulge anything in terms of like how you met this person, or like how exactly did you two cross paths?
Well, Ricky's someone that I've known for a while. So he started out as a friend, but he ended up being a collaborator, someone who I've worked with on things throughout, the last year, I would say, 1.5 years of, the recording of the record, because I recorded it 3 years ago or 4 years ago, but it was a 2 or 3 year process where I made this album. And so I was working with Ricky the last 2 years of that, and basically, he's a producer, songwriter. I I wasn't trying to have any features on the album. I wanted this album to just be showcasing what Oliver Tree could do. And I think it still does that in a lot of ways. But this song, 1993, is really special to me. And Ricky did help produce it. And he had an incredible part. And for me to take that out of me just having a pride ego trip seemed inappropriate, you know. And it's like, me and him are friends. I'm not trying to be like, you know, hey, bro, I got to remove your verse off the song because it's my album and all these things. But the truth is that what the music he's been making is just, it's inspired a lot of the things I worked on in the last year, 2 years after the album came out. After the album was finished, I mean, sorry.
Oh, okay, all right. This next question comes from Derringer Escape Plan. Are you upset about all the negative reviews that your EPs have been getting, specifically at Anthony Fantano's review?
I just want to ask you this, man. Do you really have to give it a fucking 7?
And it's a pretty positive score.
Pretty positive in what world, dude?
In the world of numbers past the number 5. Sure, it could go up past 7, but it's not a 2.
Okay. I want to say this right now.
Okay.
What the fuck do you know about making music? I heard your little Cal Chuchesco mixtape. I want to say this right now. That sounds like music made by someone who doesn't know anything about music, so they have to make a fucking parody. What are you, some kind of fucking Weird Al Yankovic minus the hair and the talent? I don't fuck with you, Fantano. I don't fuck with anyone who tries to cross you when they're trying to be a promotional
all right.
Let me just say this.
Let's just take another fan question
dude,
instead.
It's just, I don't know if anyone's ever called you out before, but that's bullshit, man. I put so much time into this music, and for some guy who's never made music before to try to tell me how to make my music, yeah, of course I might get a little offensive. I've been working on it for 20 years.
Okay.
How long did the Cal Chuchesco mixtape take?
Okay.
How long did the mixtape take? I want to know.
Probably as long as your new record. Probably as long as that.
Okay, so I want to say this. If someone spent the time to write those lyrics, I feel bad for you, dog. Okay. Let me say this. If that wasn't freestyle, then you legitimately spent time. I feel fucking bad for you.
I mean, from what I can see of Cal, it was like 3 straight years of freestyling. It wasn't so much intense writing sessions or anything like that, but I wasn't there for all of them, so I can't attest.
Okay. Fair enough.
Pocky Boy 2112 wants to know if the hair is real. A lot of people want to know if the hair is real.
I don't want to answer that. I literally said don't ask any fucking questions about the hair.
When did you say that?
We literally talked about this yesterday in the pre-interview. What the fuck are you smoking, Fantano?
Okay, all right. You're right. Okay, you're right. I thought you were talking about just now.
Don't touch the fucking hair. We're not talking about
nobody can touch it. Nobody's there except you. But you know, it was just a question that came.
Don't get into the personal life. That's all.
It was a fan question. All right. Cal Coolchester wants to know if on the new record, are all the lyrics on the songs going to be as repetitive as they were on the EPs? Will they be as repetitive?
Okay, dude. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you screening these questions before?
I mean, there aren't a lot of different questions, but you know, that was just one of them.
Let me fucking make this straight. You talking shit about me having lyrics that are repetitive?
That's not my. It's not my fucking question. Okay.
Well, I saw your fucking review.
It's not my fucking question.
7 you gave me. Let me make this very clear. I am a surrealist pop artist. Part of the genre of surrealist art.
I'm a surrealist pop artist.
Let me speak, Fantano. You invited me on here as a conversation.
Shut the fuck up.
You don't understand shit. You want to talk about repetition? Your shitty ass YouTube channel is one shitty review after another. That's repetition. You don't know fucking shit about this shit. You can
suck
go on behalf of
my
everybody
dick,
who gave shitty
you
reviews
fuck
to.
face.
Fuck you, Anthony fucking fart face.
Fuck you, fuckhead.
Fuck you.
Pussy.
Oliver's done talking.
Okay. All right. Okay.